Now, as motorists are preparing to undertake journeys across the country this festive season, legal experts have advised them to pay attention to the intricacies of the Road Accident Fund. The International Transport Forum says between 1990 and 2000, the reported number of road fatalities hovered around 9,500 per annum. Now, joining us to explain more about the Road Accident Fund claims is legal expert Mtho Maphumulo, a senior associate at Adams and Adams. Mtho, very good afternoon. Thanks for your time today. Now, what is the purpose of the Road Accident Fund?
A very good afternoon to you and to the viewers. So with the Road Accident Fund, especially at this time of the year, it is always important to always remind or educate people as to the relevant, intricacies of the Act, because it's not all claims that can be, it's not all the accidents and the losses suffered as a result thereof that can be recovered in terms of the RAF Act.
So let's talk about some of these claims. If I'm a driver and I'm liable in an accident, can I claim? If I'm a passenger in a bus accident, for instance, am I entitled to making a claim if I get injured?
Yes, yeah, sure. The RAF Act, in terms of Section 17, provides for conditions as to who is entitled to compensation in terms of the Act, and those would be people who suffer both the injuries as well as in the case where there's been death. So the dependents of the deceased can then be able to claim in terms of the RAF Act. And the second, or rather the other leg of the inquiry in terms of the conditions is that of you need to, someone needs to have contributed to the occurrence of the accident. So if, I am a passenger, it is relatively easier because I would not have caused or contributed to the occurrence of the accident. So it's either going to be the driver in whose car I am a passenger, or it is going to be someone else, the other road user. So in that instance, it is much easier. But it can get tricky where I am the driver and I cause an accident, or I am the only driver who has, or rather it's a single motor vehicle accident. Then it becomes a bit tricky.
I'm told during this time, especially the festive season, there are obviously going to be a lot of people that are coming into the country from across the borders that aren't South African, who potentially could get involved in accidents. Are they entitled? Can they make claims if they're involved in an accident and are injured?
Yes, yeah. So the Act does not discriminate in terms of nationality and all those kind of things. So certainly, so long as they can satisfy the requirements in terms of Section 17, to which I've already alluded, they can definitely make their claims.
Now, how does the RAF determine the amount of payout?
Okay, so once you've proven the liability, as well, that is to say the RAF is liable. The second leg to that is to look into the quantum component of the claim. So the quantum speaks to the monetary value with which you, as the victim of the car accident, will need to be compensated. So there are 5 heads of damages. So we divide that into 5 heads of damages. So we would look at the past medical expenses. So those would actually be the payments that you made in order, for be it for hospitalization, be it for any treatment of the injuries suffered. And the second one is the future medical expenses. So there we look at how much you are still going to need to going forward now in terms of treating the injuries stemming from the accident. The third one is going to be general damages. So for that, we will have to involve the medical experts who are going to investigate the nature and the extent of the injuries. Then if they qualify those injuries or regard them as serious in terms of the applicable tests, then you will be entitled to that, and it's going to depend on the nature and the extent of those injuries. The fourth one is going to be past loss of earnings. Say you're hospitalized for 2 weeks and you're unable to to get any income during that period, then you will have to be compensated for that. And the last head of damage is the future of earnings. That is to see as to how your injuries have now impacted on the capability or the capacity for you as a victim in terms of making or getting your income going forward. So then we are able to calculate, but we would involve various medical experts who are going to guide us and assist us, including the involvement of the actuary. Sorry.
Mtho, now, reading up about this, much of the information suggests, if not all of it, that the injuries that are taken into account are only physical. Now, as a young boy, I saw an accident in which a bus crashed into a bridge and many people died. So I had the greatest fear of bridges for the longest time. Now, I can only imagine that sometimes you can be involved in an accident, not be physically harmed, but go through a huge amount of emotional trauma. Is emotional trauma one of these things that you can claim for?
Thank you for that question. It's a very pertinent question. You can, though the test is very difficult. You can just imagine now where we need to. It's very different when the injuries are physical, because we can see them and we can see how they impact in your well-being, your overall lifestyle. It becomes a bit tricky when now it's psychological and emotional trauma. And for those kinds of claims, we would need to involve a psychiatrist to look or to give us the report, and which is going to either state whether you should be compensated, or the psychological impact of the accident is worthy of any compensation in terms of the acts. But if we are able to get a report that is positive, or that is to say the report that does say you are entitled to compensation, then by all means we can rely on this report in order to institute a claim for that kind of harm.
I can only imagine, before we let you go, Mtho, that there are a number of fraudulent applications that you run into.
Yes, certainly that is the case. So that now becomes the responsibility of you as the attorney who is assisting the person to look really at the hospital records and the accident report and all the other pertinent documentation and information. And also the RAF has to do their own investigations, because as you know, the RAF financially is not in a good position. So it's very important that only worthy and rightful claims are paid out in terms of the RAF Act.
And that's legal expert Mtho Maphumulo, a senior associate at Adams & Adams, and packing for us how the Road Accident Fund works.